Well, we continue with this. We speak now to Kimberly Mutandiro, a journalist with GroundUp. So they've written about these latest occurrences in Johannesburg, South Africa. Immigrant mothers saying that they're being blocked, as you heard, from accessing life-saving vaccines for their children, not by government policy, but by Operation Dudula. So despite a 2023 court ruling affirming the right for free healthcare for all mothers and children in South Africa, regardless of nationality, we are seeing these incidents. And we speak now to Kimberly Mutandiro. Kimberly, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Evening, and thank you for having me.
So I just outlined here the legal constitutional imperatives of understanding South African law, but Operation Dudula, which has been called an anti-immigrant group, which it denies that label, says foreign nationals have no right to health services in South Africa, particularly because they're viewed as at the expense of South Africans. Just give us how this whole saga has been playing out, because it's not just a this year thing or last year. It's been ongoing, these sentiments, for years now in South Africa.
Yes, apparently, I think Operation Dudula somehow, maybe they're in support of their leaders or their organization, as far as an ongoing court cases is actually happening right now. We have actually organizations such as Copan Africa against xenophobia, and they are being represented by SERI in a court case whereby they're actually challenging some of these actions by Operation Dudula. So I think maybe from my perspective, it's because they are trying to support whatever is going on. They are in opposition of that particular court case, whereby the Social Economic Rights Institute is actually challenging what Operation Dudula has been doing for the past years, going to hospitals in particular, trying to block immigrants from accessing healthcare. And it's really, really apparent that their actions are becoming much more intense because they've been going around clinics in Johannesburg, stopping migrants, pulling them out from the queues, stopping them from accessing healthcare. And the most depressing part of the situation is that mothers who are pregnant, mothers who are bringing their children under the age of 6 are the ones who are actually mostly being affected, considering the fact that there is actually a court ruling that is opposing what Operation Dudula is actually doing. And then it then goes on to question whether or not they are aware of this particular court ruling and whether they actually respect the constitutional right of these mothers and children at all.
And Kimberly, I'm so glad that you raised that part, that it is often pregnant women, mothers and children that are most affected by the denial of access to health services. Has there been any effort by law enforcement in South Africa, in the areas where you've covered these incidents, to actually protect these vulnerable communities?
Well, the most surprising thing is that when we spoke to the Department of Health, they indicated that law enforcement agents are supposed to be present at these particular clinics to stop Operation Dudula, but we did not see any law enforcement agents at all. So it goes on to question whether or not the department itself is even willing to stop Operation Dudula from doing what is actually happening right now.
And I want to point out firstly that you mentioned the Department of Health. They are obviously responsible for dispensing of health services. But then now we're talking about, a policing issue, a state security issue. And we know the conversation right now in South Africa is what a mess that institution is. So I think the most important question is to speak about the South African government as a whole, the architecture thereof. What instruments do they have to support those who are under attack if police officials, security officials are not doing what they're supposed to do? Is the government intending to take Operation Dudula to task through the courts? Has there been any expression of such?
No, actually, there hasn't been any efforts that we have seen by the government itself to try and stop Operation Dudula. And it's as if Operation Dudula is actually getting away with putting the court, the law into their own hands. And yet the government itself, the police, are not doing anything to stop them.
Tell me about how, and also what piqued your interest to start covering these stories. Where have you been? What have you seen?
Well, we receive a lot of emails from immigrants themselves, knowing that at GroundUp we do cover stories on immigration, and they are complaining about these issues that they are being blocked by Operation Dudula. And we've got people who are most vulnerable, who are asylum seekers and refugees, who obviously have the right to access these services in the country. And they're the ones who will reach out to us, telling us of the experiences that they are going through by Operation Dudula. And most of them, because they do not have money, because of the vulnerability of being an asylum seeker, they do not have access to work, they do not have access to any means to survive, so they actually rely on these public health care facilities, which they are being blocked. So the more that they write to us, the more that we feel the need to actually get the issues out there, probably to provoke the government itself to do something about what is actually happening, because it is people who are vulnerable who are actually falling victim to what Operation Dudula is doing.
And I want to point to a more nuanced argument here in terms of what the outcome of this will be. So, Seri, which you mentioned earlier on, and for the sake of our listeners, let's tell them what Seri is. That's the Socio-Economic Rights Institute. They say they support Operation Dudula's right to protest, but that protests are misguided. I want to talk about what, and I'm pretty sure these incidents are happening because we've seen it in the past. I mean, I grew up in Vosloorus, so I know where this narrative is going, where you're being accused of being one thing and you're not. So South Africans are probably falling victim to these targeted attacks of so-called foreigners. Have you heard of this? Have you experienced this? And no doubt, and I can lay hand on heart and say this is probably definitely going to happen if it's not happening.
Well, I think there's a lot of scapegoating of foreign nationals. That is what is happening here, because I think they are just groups like Operation Dudula are actually advocating for other South Africans. You wouldn't say that it's every South African who is supporting what Operation Dudula is happening, but they are actually advocating against foreigners, trying to make people believe that foreigners are to blame for the economic conditions that are in the country, and yet that is not the case, really. So you would really say that, it's not everybody who's in support of what Operation Dudula is doing, but it is an organization that is on a mandate, particularly to tarnish the image of immigrants in the country.
But what I'm saying is more pointed that there are probably South Africans who have fallen victim to being accused of being foreign nationals. I mean, even at a certain time in our history, people were being targeted as foreigners and being asked to pronounce certain words in either Sizulu or Sesotho to identify them as foreign nationals. So I'm saying in these cases, there are apparently South Africans who are being denied services, health services, because they're being identified as foreign nationals. Have you come across this? But I am pretty sure, and as I say, I can lay my head on, the guillotine for this. I'm pretty sure that it's happening because it has happened in the past where people are mistaken as foreigners who actually are South Africans because either they're a little too dark or their accent is not what it should be. I'm a Sotho speaker. Perhaps I can't pronounce certain words in isiZulu or whatever language you're being tested in.
Yes, I've actually heard of such instances whereby maybe somebody did not carry the IDs or something of the sort, and you find that perhaps there's somebody who's vendor who cannot speak isiZulu or who cannot speak isiSotho, and then who ends up being victimized simply because they did not carry their ID. So yeah, there have been some instances where that has happened. And then we've got people also identified as stateless people. You'd find that they are South Africans by birth, probably simply because they were born to South African parents, then something just happened with the documentation issue, and then they end up just falling under the bracket of being foreign nationals when they are not. So yes, there are so many people who are actually being affected by what Operation Dudula is doing, who are actually citizens and not foreign nationals.
Okay, so this dangerous practice of tribalism or ethnic politics, although Operation Dudula is denying that, they are saying that, they're advocating for the rights of South Africans. Are they themselves seeking legal means of ensuring that South Africans who need to have access to health services actually attain that? Because we also do know that because of the inequality in this country, and some are in very far-flung areas, rural areas, where there is no access to health centers, either because of distance or actually some of those health centers have no medication, equipment. Are they advocating for that as well?
Well, I haven't heard of instances where they are actually advocating for any of that. So I wouldn't really say that I've heard of any such thing.
So just in closing, where does the situation rest now? We know the way forward because Operation Dudula has said that they will continue with their operations. We spoke about Seri, what they're doing. Abahlali basemjondolo, that's also a very interesting angle to it because they are joining Seri, saying that they are against these anti-foreigner incidents. What are they saying in support of Seri and foreign nationals who are trying to get access to much-needed health services?
Well, in as far as Abahlali Basemjondolo is concerned, they are mostly advocating for illegal evictions, whereby you have people are being evicted illegally by Operation Dudula because it is stating that foreign nationals should not have access to maybe housing in informal settlements. And then you find that there are some foreign nationals who do live in the informal settlements. And then it is not a case of them being chased away legally, like what the law entails, that they should be provided with alternative accommodation. But there have been instances whereby they have forcefully removed people from the places that they were actually staying. So that is where Abahlali Basemjondolo comes in. But in as far as the healthcare situation, basically it has been Section 27 which has been involved, and then Seri as well, because they are concerned that people are being chased away from hospitals and clinics who are well deserving of healthcare. So I suppose the hope now lies with that court case that Seri has brought forward. We are just hoping that the law rules in Seri's favor and in favor of those people who are affected, that they end up being given access to the services that they are being denied right now by Operation Dudula.
Just a quick and final question. Has there been any death as a result of these operations? Whether it's people, because, you hear stories of women losing their children because of either myriad reasons, whether lack of access to these health facilities, the long distance that they have to travel, women suffering complications, etc., etc. So these operations, have we heard of people, women, children, pregnant mothers being injured, suffering lost any mortality as a result of these operations, or have we, thankfully not heard of such tragedies?
Thankfully, we haven't heard of any tragedies where people, women actually ended up losing their lives. But there have been cases where some of them have risked lives, having to give birth at home because they cannot go to the clinic because of what is happening. I mean, who knows? What is at risk, what is at stake here if this continues to happen.
And indeed, we should know, we should find out. Kimberly, thank you so much for your time, and hope we speak to you again soon. Kimberly Mutandiro, journalist with GroundUp, speaking to us about the recent reporting of Operation Dudula, preventing immigrant mothers and their babies from accessing public health care services in defiance of court orders and constitutional rights.